This video is brought to you by Movement for Life Physical Therapy. Alright, USA Grappling Women's 64 kg Division. This is my first match. You can see we're already starting to tie up, and I'm already starting to look for that snap down and that front headlock positioning. One thing to keep in mind is that under the UWW rule set, if you are able to push your opponent outside that white outer line, you are awarded a point for a step out. So that's why I'm being mindful about circling back towards the center of the mat. Here I'm trying to control her hands as we continue to fight for head positioning and hand positioning. I'm still noticing that I'm able to kind of snap down on her head and be heavy on her head, so I'm continuing to try to look for that front headlock positioning. You can see here I'm able to start to go for that front headlock, but she's able to pull out right at the last second. So I reset and go back to fighting for that hand positioning, still looking for that head control. We continue to hand fight and start to tie up. I'm trying to be heavy on that head without throwing myself off balance, and also still being mindful of that outside line and making sure that I'm continually circling towards the center so I'm not putting myself in danger of giving up points. Here I'm able to hit that front headlock positioning, and she sits to her back, and I'm able to secure my 2 points. She immediately starts to pull me into a leg lock. It's important to know that under the UWW rule set, all leg lock finishes and positions, including reaping, are allowed with the exception of heel hooks. So any leg lock finish and any leg lock position is allowed except for a heel hook finish. I'm able to maintain really heavy hip pressure here, and I'm able to get my leg in a safe position. I'm still not past the leg lock position yet, but from here I'm starting to attack for a darce, and I use the threat of the darce to get my leg free. I maintain that heavy sprawl and hip pressure as well as the darce, and I use that to pass, and then I let go of the darce and I establish my positioning in north-south and then start to try to come around to the side for side control. She starts trying to come up onto her side while I continue to try to attack for a darce, but as I feel her start to come up onto her side, I start to circle to maintain that top positioning. As I feel her come up onto her side and try to start to turtle, I keep my hips heavy and back and start to spin and try to look for my back control. I establish my double underhooks and try to keep my hips aligned with her hips to try to take her back, but I'm unable to get my hooks in, and she starts attacking for a toe hold on my right leg. However, I'm able to pull my foot free, so she continues to attack that right leg and instead tries to switch to a knee bar. At this point, I abandon the back control and I start to come up, both so that I can establish the top positioning as well as to defend the leg lock. Since neither one of us could heel hook and we were in 50-50, this wasn't great leg positioning for either of us, so she starts to try to come up, but I use that pressure to push her back down and try to kick my leg free. From here, I'm able to use that heavy hip pressure and head pressure to start to work my leg out of the 50-50 position and start to establish my top positioning. She establishes her butterfly hooks. However, I'm able to smash them pretty quickly and use my shoulder pressure and head pressure to start to establish my pressure pass. The goal here is to keep everything as tight as possible to keep her from being able to get her hooks in and start to work for sweeps or retaining her guard or leg lock positioning. I'm trying to keep her as flat as I can and climb up the body and establish a side control or mount positioning. She is trying to get her frames in and push me away to create space to get her legs in and start her attacks while I'm trying to maintain heavy pressure. She is able to create enough space to try to sweep me over. However, I'm able to maintain my balance and keep my top positioning. All I could think about from here was maintaining this top position and not letting her get points for sweeping me over. At this point, the points were 3-1 in my favor, so if I had let her sweep me over, it would have made us tied, and I did not want that to happen. So I would much rather be in this leg lock position that we're in now, trying to defend that leg lock submission rather than having to make up those points. She's able to maintain her scoop grip on the leg, but I'm able to keep my hips and feet back, and I'm heavy pressuring onto her, and I'm starting to establish my head and arm positioning, and I'm using it to get my leg free and walk around to side control. Unfortunately, the match ends before I'm able to finish my head and arm choke, but I was able to win the match 3-1 on points. My opponent was super nice and super gracious, and I was very relieved to have my first match out of the way. I definitely could have performed a little bit better. I think if I had stuck on the first Darce that I had, I could have finished it, but all in all, I got the job done, and so I was super relieved. Alright, match number 2. I knew going into this that she was an MMA fighter, so I was expecting a more MMA style of grappling, and I also knew she was going to shoot in on me, so I was trying to prepare for my sprawl. You can see here, she shoots in for the single leg, I sprawl out, and I immediately re-roll my ankle that I had rolled in training previously, and she gets 2 for the takedown. However, I'm immediately starting to attack her left arm with the Kimura grip to try to counter her takedown with a submission. As of right now, the points are 2-0 in my opponent's favor. However, I am still trying to counter with that submission. I'm trying to bring my hips over the top to try to go for a swim move armbar or a belly down armbar, as I've still got a really good grip on her left arm. And I'm continuing to try to cut my hips in order to keep attacking. She's doing a really good job here of trying to hide her arm and trying to keep me from cutting my hips by pressuring heavily here. You can see I'm still hanging onto that arm here, but she's pressuring into me to try to keep me from coming up and continuing to attack that arm. I'm trying to switch to the Kimura here, but she's able to posture up, and so I switch back to trying to go for the armbar. I'm inverting for the armbar, and I have a pretty good bite on it, but she's able to pull her arm free and pressures back down while I retain my guard. As you can see, she's smashing into my butterfly hook to keep me flat and is doing a good job pressuring heavy here. I notice her elbows start to flare here while she's in my guard, and so I start to attack for my Kimura grip once again. From here, she goes to try to stand up to escape my guard and try to pass. From here, I try to see if I can hit a standing sweep, but I'm not quite able to. She starts to come around, and I'm able to lock up my closed guard and immediately start attacking for the Kimura again. She's doing a really good job of keeping my hips flat to the mat and trying to go around for a heavy pressure pass. Here she starts attacking my arm, but I am also attacking for the Kimura. We continue to hand fight for control on that far side. I'm looking for the Kimura, and she is looking for wrist control to try to aid her in her guard pass. I try to walk my feet up a little bit higher, and we continue to fight back and forth, each trying to fight for hand control on each side. She starts to posture up here. I see if I can go for my sweep, but I'm not able to, and she's able to keep me pretty well flattened out and pressured, and I continue to fight for that Kimura off of the hip bump sweep while she continues to try to attack my far side arm. One thing she's doing a really good job of is keeping my hips flat to the mat, which is making it more difficult for me to cut my angle and try to go for submissions. We keep hand fighting here. She's postured up now, and I'm fighting for wrist control to try to start to look for my arm bar. She stands up. I'm still looking for my armbar, fighting for that 2-on-1 control, looking for my opportunity to cut my hips, throw my leg over the head, and finish out my armbar. But I'm never quite able to get my control that I need, and I wind up pulling her back down into my guard. At this point, we had wandered out of bounds, and the ref is going to reset us in the middle. One interesting thing about the UWW rule set is instead of trying to reset you in the exact position that you were in, they reset you in a standard position. And so since we were in guard, they set us into the standard guard position that is required by UWW. So that's what we're doing here, and we reset and go. I'm immediately fighting for wrist control, trying to get my armbar, and she stands up and starts to try to break my guard open and is able to start to pass into half guard. However, she left her elbow open, and I immediately attack my Kimura grip and start attacking for the Kimura on her left arm. At this point, I'm hoping to retain my full guard and finish the Kimura from my full guard. However, she's doing a good job defending and trying to keep me from getting my guard back so that I can finish the Kimura. However, I knew that even as she was starting to come around to side control to try to pass, as long as I had my Kimura grip in solid, I was going to be able to force her to roll in order to defend the Kimura. And then from there, I was able to latch onto her back and get my hooks in, and was able to climb up and get my 4 points for the back control. I was finally able to score, bringing the points from 2-0 in her favor to being 4-2 in my favor. I'm trying to dig for my rear naked choke and stay on her back. At this point, we've got really short time, and so all I want to do is make sure that I stay on her back and I don't let her score. However, she's able to turn into my guard and get a reversal, and she starts to work for her pass while I immediately go back to attacking for my armbar. She gets 2 points for the reversal. We continue to fight back and forth. I'm going for the armbar. The score is now 4-4, and the match ends. Here's where things get confusing. I did not realize that you got 2 points for a reversal, so here you can see me asking the ref what she got the 2 points for. So to be clear, the match ended tied 4-4. My opponent got 2 points for the takedown at the beginning of the match and 2 points for the reversal at the end of the match, whereas I got 4 points for the back take with the hooks in, meaning that the score was tied at 4-4. However, under the UWW rules, if there is a tie match, it then goes to whose points valuation was higher. So since I did one 4-point move in taking her back rather than two 2-point moves that she did where she took me down and got a reversal, that means that I won because my points valuation was higher. However, me nor her coach knew about this rule prior to the match, so there was just a lot of confusion as to what was going on. Full disclosure though, both her and her coach were very nice, very polite, very respectful. We just had to make sure we knew what was going on, and this is the ref pulling out the rules to show us, and it was just kind of a weird, unfortunate thing to happen. But the ref did a really, really good job making sure that he followed the rules exactly, which I really appreciated. They did a really good job running this tournament, and she had a really good attitude despite it being kind of a cruddy ending to our match. This was a really good match. I thought we were very evenly matched, and I was very grateful to have won and secured my spot at the USA Team Trials. Both my opponents were really good and really kind and gracious, and I was really excited to secure my spot at the USA Team Trials. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned to see those matches. They're going to be really good.